nearest police station or JPS. JPS thanks all customers for their patience as teams continue working to restore power safely and as quickly as possible. That was a public service announcement from JPS.
They've lost homes.
Everything is gone. Have no house, have nothing.
They've lost power.
No water, no food, no light, no bed. Jamaican people need desperate help.
Some haven't heard a familiar voice in days.
The last thing I said to my sister, please be safe. And that was the last time.
For others, hope is starting to ebb. But together, we are rebuilding Jamaica one parish at a time.
We have to try. We have to try. Can't give up.
Join Nationwide 90 FM from November 21 to December 19, every Friday from 9 a.m. to 3 p.m. as we broadcast live from Westmoreland, St. James, Trelawney, Hanover, and St. Elizabeth, helping families and communities rebuild after Hurricane Melissa.
And you can help too.
Bring your donations, non-perishable food, water, hygiene products, lighting, or recovery supplies to our office at 14 Ocean Boulevard, the Digital Building, downtown Kingston.
Let's show the true strength of our nation: unity, compassion, and care. Together, we can rebuild lives and restore hope. Nationwide 90 FM, the revolution in media.
Give us strength. Never let I fail.
Nationwide 90 FM, continuing the tradition of fair, fearless, and factual reporting. You're listening to Nationwide 90 FM. The time is
5 o'clock.
From the Nationwide News Network, comprehensive, incisive, tough. This is Nationwide at 5.
Good afternoon, I'm Andrew Cannon. Coming up in the news for this Saturday, November 22, 2025, Prime Minister Dr. Andrew Holness highlights severe challenges ahead to rebuild the economy at G20 Summit. Health Ministry denies claims of cholera cases in Western Jamaica. Megamart Wholesale Club refutes newspaper report that it plans to permanently close its store in Montego Bay, St. James. On the international scene, Ukraine's allies voiced concerns over U.S. plan to end the war. And in sport, it was Newcastle 2, Manchester City 1 in English Premier League action. The details after this.
If it's news, it's got to be Nationwide 90 FM.
A formidable challenge. That's how Prime Minister Dr. Andrew Holness has described the task to rebuild the Jamaican economy following the devastating impact of Hurricane Melissa. Dr. Holness was addressing the G20 summit now underway in Johannesburg, South Africa. The Prime Minister stressed that although the country has sound economic framework to address the crisis, external help is needed.
A single climate-driven event can erase decades of progress, destabilize public finances, and constrain development trajectories overnight. Disaster risk reduction is fundamental to our national survival. Recovery and reconstruction will be a formidable task, but Jamaica is not daunted. We are determined to rebuild stronger, more resilient, and more sustainably. We have already activated our multi-layer disaster risk financing framework to support immediate response and early recovery. However, the scale of the challenge far exceeds what small economies can shoulder alone. We will need your support.
Dr. Holness also called on developed countries to cut carbon emission as climate change caused by bad environmental practices is now an existential threat to the livelihood of small island developing states.
The unprecedented strength of Hurricane Melissa following the wake of last year's Hurricane Beryl and other weather events, these ground our global call to action. The world must confront this crisis by urgently reducing emissions in line with the 1.5 degrees Celsius target. Failure to do so guarantees more frequent and more destructive storms for countries like Jamaica.
Prime Minister Dr. Andrew Holness. The Health Ministry has flatly denied claims of a number of cases of cholera in Western Jamaica. Principal Medical Officer and National Epidemiologist Dr. Karen Webster Carr dismissed the claims while speaking at a media briefing on Friday.
To be very clear, we don't have cholera in Jamaica. We don't have cholera in Jamaica. It would have to be brought here. With respect to the other gastroenteritis, we are not seeing at this time an increase above the normal. Okay, so at this time, we are not in an outbreak for gastroenteritis or waterborne illnesses.
Dr. Karen Webster Carr, Principal Medical Officer and National Epidemiologist. Megamart Wholesale Club has refuted a newspaper report that it plans to permanently close its store in Catherine Hall, Montego Bay, St. James. CEO and founder of Megamart, Ghassan Azan Jr., spoke with Cliff Hughes during an outside broadcast in Savannah Mar earlier on Friday. Colicia Wright reports.
Megamart Montego Bay opened in 2007, the third in the brand's 4 superstore locations across the island. With a footprint of 75,000 square feet, it's the largest. But on October 28, Hurricane Melissa laid waste to the plant and its inventory. The Category 5 system pumped as much as 8 feet of flood water into the store, with damage estimated to be in the billions of dollars. A Gleaner story on Wednesday said the company was permanently closing the store as a result. But founder and CEO Ghassan Azan Jr. says not so.
I think there was some miscommunication in the newspaper article that came out, quoting Mr. Gupte. There was never any talk of permanent closure. It's going to take a long time to put the store back together, as you can well imagine, if all your electrics have been flooded out and all your equipment is destroyed. Mm-hmm. It takes time to reorder all this stuff and get it back up and running. So there is going to be an extensive period, and maybe because he hinted at a redundancy exercise was the reason that the journalists thought that it would be a permanent closure.
But that's not so. That's not.
No, absolutely not.
Azan says the level of the flood waters was terrifying and the scale of the damage to the store and the community immense.
Cliff, I'm surprised that we didn't have more deaths in that area, because that housing scheme across from us, Catherine Hall and the surrounding areas, 8 feet of water would actually inundate most of those houses. So I'm really very surprised.
Yeah.
I mean, it must have been a horrifying experience to be there. Yeah. The security that we had in the stores were actually perched on the racks. If you know what Megamart looks like, we have these racks. Yes. Because the water kept rising and rising, and these guys were worried that they were going to drown inside the store. So
8 feet of water in the store.
Yeah, I have photographs showing the watermarks on the wall.
Megamart Montego Bay employs some 160 people. Azan says most of the staff has been accounted for and has been turning up for work despite being in shelters. It's unclear how long the store will be closed for cleanup and renovation. It's understood that in the interim, the company will facilitate transfers for some staff to other locations. Colicia Wright for Nationwide News.
The St. James Municipal Corporation is seeking to reassure residents of Catherine Hall, West Green and neighbouring communities that the recent erection of barricades in the areas was not linked to any confirmed disease outbreak. According to Mayor Richard Vernon, who also chairs the local board of health, the barriers were placed strictly to support ongoing cleaning and restoration work following recent flooding. Mayor Vernon says advice from Chief Public Health Inspector Sharika Lewis confirms that there is no outbreak of leptospirosis in affected communities. He notes that while a few suspected cases are being investigated, there have been no confirmed deaths from leptospirosis in St. James. He says the Ministry of Health and Wellness, through the National Surveillance Unit and the St. James Health Services, continues to monitor the situation as a precaution. Mayor Vernon stressed that the barricades should not be interpreted as a quarantine measure. Chief Public Health Inspector Lewis added that routine public health monitoring is standard following flooding and remains in place to safeguard community health. The St. James Municipal Corporation is urging residents to stay calm, maintain good hygiene practices, and follow all public health guidance. Meanwhile, Mayor Vernon says over 1,600 truckloads of debris and mud were removed from the Catherine Hall and West Green areas in St. James.
The flood that followed Melissa is the largest flood that we have documented in Montego, and we must understand the gravity of that. But that flooding came about 150,000 tons of mud left along roadways and homes. As a result, we have deployed our resources in the Catherine Hall area for 22 days. Started with a light deployment, and then we worked ourselves up to 15 tipper trucks, 8 backhoes. And then, of course, up to yesterday, our last debriefing, we have removed 1,636 truckloads of debris from the community.
The areas were severely impacted by floodwaters as high as 10 feet, which destroyed homes and other critical infrastructure. It also resulted in heavy mud and debris pileup in the communities. Works Minister Robert Morgan and Minister with responsibility for special projects Dr. Andrew Wheatley are leading the government's cleanup operations in the areas. This is being done in close partnership with the National Solid Waste Management Authority, NSWMA. Mayor Vernon notes that efforts are now being made to transition into sanitizing the areas.
The project is unfolding in a way that is going to lead us to a place of sanitization, and that is what we are commencing today. Today we will find the water trucks moving around in the community doing extensive washing. Of course, they're using bleach and sanitizers to reduce the probability of any contraction from germs or any virus or anything that can cause disease. So we are actively moving in that space as we move to close out that project this weekend.
Richard Vernon, Mayor of Montego Bay. He was speaking during a follow-up meeting of the Emergency Operations Center, EOC, held at the St. James Municipal Corporation on Thursday. The police have confirmed that a man was shot and killed during an operation in Old Harbour, St. Catherine on Friday. The incident occurred sometime after 5 a.m. in Marley Acres. The deceased has been identified as Domar Lee, otherwise known as Not Nice. Commanding officer for the St. Catherine South Police, Acting SSP Leighton Gray, says Lee was among several wanted men the police have been pursuing in the division.
This morning, we had a major operation in the Old Harbour space in search of several persons who we have as primary targets, and it includes one Domar Lee, OC Not Nice. He is one of the top tier member of the Roofy 2 gang. So the police would have gone to that location this morning to conduct an operation in search for him. From preliminary information is that he confronted the police with a firearm and he was shot and injured. He was rushed to the Spanish Town Hospital, and unfortunately, upon being treated, he subsequently died.
Acting SSP Gray is urging members of the public not to challenge the police.
The police recovered a .38 revolver along with 3 rounds. And I would just want to use this opportunity to implore members of the public to avoid confrontation with the police. If the police confronts you, it is important that you surrender and you will be safely taken into custody. The police are highly trained, and as such, the police will go in defense of their lives. So investigation continues into this matter, and Indicom and other operatives were notified.
Acting Senior Superintendent Leighton Gray, Commanding Officer for the St. Catherine South Police. 274 people have been killed by the security forces since the start of the year. This is 178 more than the 166 killed up to November 17 last year. So far, 20 have been reported in November alone. Minister of Education, Senator Dr. Dana Morris-Dixon, has disclosed that the Caribbean Examinations Council, CXC, has agreed to extend the examination timetable for Jamaica. She made the disclosure during Friday's sitting of the Senate. The minister was responding to questions following a statement on the impact and response to Hurricane Melissa. Meanwhile, Dr. Morris-Dixon also informed that no final decision has been taken on the primary exit profile PEP examinations. To news now on the international scene. Ukraine's allies from Europe, Canada and Japan have voiced concerns over a U.S. plan to end the Russia-Ukraine war, saying it will require additional work. They said in a statement the plan had elements essential for a just and lasting peace, but cited concerns over border changes and caps on Ukraine's army. Later on Saturday, U.S. President Donald Trump said the draft plan was not his final offer for Ukraine. On Sunday, security officials from Britain, France, Germany, the U.S. and Ukraine will meet in Geneva, Switzerland. President Volodymyr Zelensky earlier warned Ukraine faced one of the most difficult moments in our history over U.S. pressure to accept the plan seen as favorable to Moscow. Let's now turn to sports because Harvey Barnes fired Newcastle United to a memorable victory against Manchester City in a rip-roaring Premier League contest. Barnes, who also opened the scoring, prodded home from inside the box to secure all 3 points at a raucous St. James Park. Ruben Dias earlier equalized for his visitors when his effort took a deflection off Fabian Schär after Newcastle failed to clear their lines from a corner. But Newcastle showed their own powers of recovery to retake the lead a few minutes later. So the final score in that match, well, it was Newcastle 2, Manchester City 1. And now for a recap of the top stories making the news at this hour. Prime Minister Dr. Andrew Holness highlights severe challenges ahead to rebuild the economy at G20 summit. Health Ministry denies claims of cholera cases in Western Jamaica. Megamart Wholesale Club refutes newspaper report that it plans to permanently close its store in Montego Bay, St. James. You can find the news on our website at nationwideradiojm.com and on the Nationwide app available on Google Play and the App Store. Use this next at 5 tomorrow afternoon. Good afternoon.